excuse me, McMullen and McDonald here. Let's add Jeff Kerr into the mix. He of CBSSports.com joins us early on Mondays. He was down at the Eagles game with Johnny Mack hanging out in the press box yesterday. Last play of the game. Back to pass. Dak Prescott completes. Will they or won't they tackle him in the field of play? They get him down at the 2-yard line, Jeff Kerr. What were you doing? Were you nervously sitting? Now you can't scream and yell in the press box.
Well,
go ahead.
First thing I was thinking of, Jody Mack. This guy will do anything not to throw an interception. This is what I get tired of with the Cowboys. Dak was the best player on the field yesterday. But
I disagree with that, Jeff. Right off the bat, I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
Dak?
Yeah. I look, he is a veteran quarterback. He is a veteran quarterback. They have the ball 1st and 5 at the Eagles 6.
And false start, or was that the delay of game? I can't
The
remember. They made so many mistakes.
The false start was first. That's not necessarily Dak's fault. You don't know what goes on, but the false start was first. Then he takes a sack, and not only a sack, it was a great pass rush by Josh Sweat, but that's an 11-yard sack, which that tells me, well, the foot ain't hitting the ground if he's losing 11 yards. I have to rewatch the game. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to rewatch the game. But you have to understand that situation. You have to understand that situation.
Well, there's a lot of situations he didn't understand. Like BG even explained it last night at his locker. He couldn't believe he stepped out of balance on the 2-point conversion. Yeah. I'm like, you had old, and I'm using Fletcher Cox's words here, old ass BG beat, and you step out of balance.
Yeah.
I can't believe this team is the worst situational football team I've ever seen. From you said, John, the sack to stepping out back to Luke
and the delay of game.
And the delay of game.
You're a veteran quarterback. I don't expect that from a rookie. And they have a good play clock at Lincoln Financial Field. Some of these stadiums are a little bit hinky. It's right in front of your face.
And then
it's unacceptable for a veteran quarterback. And then Jody was saying, what were you doing? You were cheering when he throws it short of the end zone because CeeDee Lamb would have had to break in 4 tackles to get in the end zone.
Yeah, well,
that's a bad throw.
Yeah, so this is what I thought when he threw it. I'm like, why are you throwing it there? 2, did CeeDee Lamb think like someone was going to be behind him, the hook and ladder? Like, I just don't know what they were doing. I didn't even realize Sidney Brown was the one who got the fumble or forced the I'm just like, okay, game over. Like, they're a dumb football team. They're just a dumb football team. They do it every single year. I get sick and tired of people saying to me, this team's a Super Bowl contender. This team is this. This team is that. Beat somebody. That's all I'm saying. You're 0-2 against the Eagles and 49ers. It is, and you find ways to lose every single time.
I'm disappointed. I am disappointed, guys, in Dak Prescott. You go back to the playoff game where he tried to spot the ball himself. Not understanding
you got to know that, Dak.
How long have you been playing this position in this league?
You know what, John? You know what my issue with Dak is? And again, it's the Cowboys trying to stay away from the Eagles' distraction. Even Micah Parsons said, "It was Dak too." Oh, pour honey on me. Like, come on, man. Like, know your element.
That stuff I don't care about. I mean,
but that's what losing people do. Losing quarterbacks.
Well, no, look at it from BG. Nobody talks more trash than BG. I have no problem with that.
After the fact, though, he did.
No, BG does it from the coin toss, man. I mean, he's talking crap from the coin toss, and I have no problem with it. He generally has backed it up throughout his career. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me. But when I can't say it enough. When you're a veteran quarterback and you don't understand situational football, it drives me insane. It drives me insane. If I were a coach, that's the thing that would drive me the most insane.
Well, Mike McCarthy is also one of the worst situational coaches ever, too. I don't think that guy knew how much time he actually had on the clock.
I find it very hard to believe that Mike McCarthy is not teaching Dak Prescott to look at the play clock and not take delayed game.
I think Aaron Rodgers bailed that guy out a lot of
So do
times
I.
over the years.
And
Well,
that was
I
one of
don't
my big
disagree with
questions
that.
on the Cowboys coming into the year. How do we know if Mike McCarthy can call plays? I had no idea, and I would say that he's been marginal at best this year. But John's right about Dak yesterday, because, and we've been down this road before, nothing, and I mean nothing, annoys me more than when they throw the ball short of where they should throw the ball. Johnny and I went back and forth last year about Kirk Cousins in a playoff game of the Giants. You can't throw the ball short of the sticks on fourth down. You can't. You can't bank on someone breaking a tackle and getting the first down or the touchdown. And that's what Dak did yesterday with CD Lamb. You can't throw in the middle of the field and think he's going to be able to beat 4 Eagle players to get into the end zone. You have to throw the ball into the end zone there, the same way Cousins had to throw it past the stick later. Nothing bothers me more. Talk about situational awareness. The quarterback's got to know, the receiver's got to know. If the receiver isn't past the area that he's got to pick up to extend the game, you can't throw him the ball. I don't care how open he is. That's just dumb football.
The Cowboys outgained the Eagles 163-14 in the fourth quarter yesterday. They had 3 possessions inside the 30 and did not score once. That is losing football. Bottom line. That is why the Eagles are the Eagles and the Cowboys are the Cowboys. And
well, that's why, where I say 1st and 5 at the 6-yard line with 27 seconds
and
left.
You didn't score. Nothing.
And they weren't, and they had CD Lamb, who the Eagles didn't cover all afternoon. And they just went backwards from 6 to 11, from 11 to 22, from 22 to 27. What is, I mean, yeah, this is one where typically I look at, a lot of Eagles fans, one of the first comments we got this morning in the chat, I saw, oh, they're terrible. They're the worst team. They're a mirage. No, typically they win games, and they win games you're pretty comfortable. Here's one where I think the stupidity of the Dallas Cowboys bailed them out a little bit. I really believe
but it's like you said, John, they have a history of doing this from the 49ers 2 years ago to now. They just find ways to lose games against good teams, whether they're getting blown out or whether they're making mistakes. I kept saying in my head, I kept putting in my head about 4 or 5 times yesterday, this is going to be the signature win for the Dallas Cowboys, and I got to shut my mouth. Nope. Didn't happen. They still find ways to lose. It's incredible how they were able to blow this football game. Everybody goes, the Eagles blew it. I'm like, they didn't blow it. Dallas did. The win was there for the Cowboys to steal a division win on the road when you were getting outplayed through 3 quarters, and you clearly outplayed the Eagles in the 4th, and you still didn't win.
But I do want to give a couple Eagles credit here as far as closing goes. Brandon Graham, Mr. Trash Talker himself, back-to-back plays, 1 clean sack, 1 shared sack for him to come up that big. You got to give him some credit. It's not just dumb Dak holding on to the football too long. No, BJ made good reads, good plays, good dip unders on both of those plays. And then Josh Sweat with the biggest sack of the game. Except Josh, I know you talk about football awareness, situational awareness. Can't go celebrating when the clock is running, and you're running over to the sidelines to do the swim move after you get the sack. Now I know you want to celebrate, you want to get into the. Can't be doing that. You got to get up and get ready for the next play. Did dodge a little bit of a bullet there, but hey, the Eagles defense did come up big in both of those 2 spots. It wasn't all just Dak choking. The Eagles defense got to get some credit for those 2 plays.
Well, Josh is great. I mean, I've been talking about Josh Sweat all year. He might be the most underrated edge rusher in football. And yeah, Brandon came up big in a big spot. And the only and that was a great rush, the Sweat rush. And I'm not even, but when I see that number 11, that tells me, and that's how much Dak Prescott lost on the play. That tells me he had a chance to get the football out. If it's 7, maybe, Jody brings up the Kirk Cousins play, and he's right. Kirk Cousins should have thrown it to the sticks in the playoffs. But also Derek Lawrence bulldozed the offensive lineman. It was on him immediately. This is a little bit different. When you're 11 yards that means you have a little bit of time to understand the situation.
And remember, Dak was running on that too. He was trying to do something. It's I don't know with this. By the way, can we give a shout out to Zach Cunningham? I actually thought he played a decent.
Oh, he played tremendously, Zach Cunningham. Nakobe Dean, we didn't mention, injured again. Did not play well, I don't think, during the game. Zach Cunningham was tremendous. I thought he had a great game. I can't wait to see the PFF grades and see what they gave Zach Cunningham, because I'm with you, Jeff. I thought from the naked eye he played a really good game. You could argue he was certainly. I don't even think he was the Eagles' best back seven player in that game, and there weren't a lot of great back seven players in the game, but he was the best.
I took a look at the early coverage numbers for the secondary last night. I was actually kind of, I shouldn't say shocked, because I didn't see him give up that many big plays. He gave a lot of completions, but Darius Slay only gave up 67 passing yards last night.
Well, Slay's, yeah. I mean, at the end of the game, they stopped with the nonsense with the Ricks and Sidney Brown on CD Lamb, and they were putting Darius Slay on CD Lamb. And it's, look, that's a really good player. Nick was talking about it after the game, CD Lamb. He's having a great season. He's really difficult to deal with. But, with anything, I said, I don't know if I ever said, and I told Jody, and I'll tell you, Jeff, they targeted him 16 times, and I don't think it was enough.
Yeah, I said that to answer to Checo last time. Like, they probably should have targeted him 26 times.
Yeah.
I would just kept throwing it to him. He was open all night.
Yeah.
So, but they had one other player who was a key contributor. And talk about breaking down the film, I'd really like to know. They made the Cowboy tight end look like Jay Noble.
Yeah, he had a good game as well. Yeah.
And it seemed like they just found the perfect seam between the linebacker and the safety. And that's where it comes down to communication. When you're passing off, the linebacker has them off the line of scrimmage. Safety's got to pick them up thereafter. They seem to just drill right into that middle spot. And I couldn't say afterwards, that's on Nakobe Dean did. And Morrow didn't get him covered. Blankenship didn't come up and make the play. I don't know who it was, but they were making Ferguson look like he could be an all-pro. That was another guy I questioned coming into the season. I thought losing Dalton Schultz was going to be a big loss for him. Oh, by the way, watch Dalton Schultz go nuts earlier in the day, catching balls from CD Lamb. But Ferguson, if they weren't throwing it to CD Lamb, they were throwing it to Ferguson, and they were getting results. It wasn't like they weren't getting plays out of their other wide receivers. Though they only had one. He was the tight end, and I'd love to know who came up small in the coverage of Ferguson, because he burnt them pretty good too.
I'll tell you what, I was talking to Eli Ricks after the game, just about CD Lamb, and I'll give the kid credit. His confidence has not been shaken by that. He goes, I learned a lot just from watching CD Lamb. And I actually asked him about the double movie because he just flat out beat me. He said he's CD Lamb, and I got a lot of work to do. So it's, it's clear that these young guys are learning by trial by fire. I feel bad for guys like Eli Ricks right now, and Sidney Brown, Mario Goodrich when he was playing. They're in situations they shouldn't be at this point. Like, guys are just they need Bradley Roby back.
Yeah. And they're going to get him. Bradley tweeted he's going to be back, so he's excited. He's going to be back after the bye. Brandon Cooks, I mean, he played 58 snaps. I didn't even know he was on the field.
Did he even catch a pass? Was that pass intended?
I think he caught one.
I think he caught not much of a gain either.
Yeah. I didn't even know he was on the field. I sit next to Groats at the game, so it's really difficult for me. But I asked him at one point, is Cooks hurt? He's on the field every play, and I said, I didn't even know he was on the field.
John, do you even know what number he wears?
Single digits, right?
Yes. Jody's close.
Yeah.
Number 3.
3. I knew it was single digits. I couldn't remember exactly what it was.
I mean, Jalen Tolbert made a couple plays. Michael Gallup has got nothing left. I mean, there's a guy, you never know, because there's a guy who looked like he was going to be a really good player towards the ACL, and he's just not the same. So you never know, even with things that we take for granted. We say, oh, he'll be back from an ACL and he'll be fine. He's not fine. He's not the same guy. They don't have that second receiver, so that's a problem for them. But as Jody pointed out, Ferguson had a really nice game. And he looks like he's turning into a pretty good player. But so much of this game, you talk about the inches, the throw to the other tight end, Schoonmaker, whatever his name is.
Oh yeah.
Reed Blankenship made a tremendous play there, in 6 inches away from a touchdown on 4th and 1. And then you mentioned before, Jeff, the Dak Prescott running out of bounds. If that's a 2-point conversion, they can kick the field goal and go to overtime at the end of the game. Yeah, man. Al Pacino fighting for those inches any given Sunday.
Yeah, John, football is such an interesting game when it comes to scoring touchdowns. So your body doesn't have to cross the plane at all, but the ball doesn't. It's a touchdown.
Yeah.
But half his body is across.
Oh, yeah, he was it. Yeah, it looked, to the naked eye, it looked like touchdown.
Yeah, and that was on our side of the field. I'm like, oh, that's a touchdown. Then I look, I'm like, is it a touchdown? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how they were going to rule it, but and then I looked, third look, I'm like, it's not a touchdown. So it's
all right. We got on Dak's case, and rightfully so. We got on the Cowboys' case for foolish penalties in that last drive. Eagles had 10 penalties in the game, and a couple of them came at very inopportune times.
Jody,
on the opposite side of the field.
Jody, I'm glad you brought that up because, John, I wanted to hear your take on this too. What did you think of the Sam Reddick roughing the passer on Prescott?
I mean, there's bad roughing the passer calls. I mean, again, I always say, Jody knows, he's probably sick of me saying this. I don't like the legislation either, but that's what it is. Yeah. And they call the game like they call the game. And I always say the people don't like the legislation. That's the
they blame the ref, but it's not the ref.
Yeah. They don't like the rule. And I don't like the rule either. But in today's game, it's probably roughing the passer.
I don't like how earlier in the game, and again, I didn't think it was a penalty when he did it, but when Michael Parsons slammed Hurts to the ground, I'm like, okay, it's not a big deal. But then a defensive player gets a penalty for pushing a quarterback. I'm like, come on, man. Like, just be consistent with it. That's all I ask.
It happens all over the league, though. It's not like they're picking on the Eagles.
No, they're not.
And when you see a week where, Aiden O'Connell starting and Jaron Hall starting and who else?
Clayton
Tune is
Josh Dobbs is leading the Vikings to victories. Yeah. By the way, they're making the playoffs with Josh Dobbs. I'm calling
that was a good story. Josh Dobbs didn't take one rep. Didn't even know the names of his receivers.
He was showing his cadence there to offensive linemen on the sidelines, and they all looked at him like, wait, what?
Yeah. That's a good story. Josh Dobbs deserves a lot of credit. I think he'll be exposed in the coming weeks, but that's me.
I like him though. He's a guy. Titans called on him last year in week 17. Just
off
the street.
But I think that was his second win as a starter, so I wouldn't decry him as the next Brock Purdy just yet.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, he did a nice job. He did a tremendous job. But, the league doesn't want all these injured quarterbacks, so they're doing as much as possible to protect them because they want offense. Everything involves on offense. And that's the thing, that they're throwing these illegal contact flags from the opposite side of the field. It has nothing to do with the play. That, to me, is the most frustrating part.
Or listening to my fellow national cohorts during the game complain about the tush push was driving me insane. I almost felt like saying shut up. It's a football play.
The Cowboys announcers, Brad Sham, I think it's Brad Sham and Babe Laufenberg. It's out there. Yeah. They were calling for it. And by the way, good for Babe. It was Babe who said, well, we got to play him twice a year, so you got to get it banned. At least he's honest.
Yeah, he's not trying to hide behind.
Yeah.
But speaking of the tush push, and despite the fact that he's got a bum knee, Jalen continues to be able to get the first downs whenever necessary. And a tip of the cap to Nick, because he goes for it inside his own 40-yard line right off the bat to start the game. That's how much confidence he has in it.
That's ballsy, by the
It
way.
really
Yeah,
was.
it is.
Yeah.
I give Sirianni credit for that. But John and I was just touching on this before we punched you up, Jeff. Eagles scored 28 points, which was enough to win yesterday. But the fourth quarter, when they're looking to run out the clock, they just couldn't do it. If it was the offensive line not winning the mano-a-mano battle, or the fact that the Eagles, when they run an RPO, nobody believes Jalen Hurts is going to keep the football and run with it. And I know he's playing with a bum knee, but this is now the better part of 4 or 5 weeks. Even before we knew that his knee was hurt, he wasn't all that effective. How important is it for Jalen Hurts to get back to 100%? I don't want to. I don't need to see him run it the way he did at the beginning of last year. But he's got to run it better than he's running it right now, because that was a key element to the Eagles' offensive game when they were scoring 30-plus every single week at the beginning of last season. How much did they miss Jalen Hurts' ability to keep the football and run it?
They missed in the fourth quarter last night. I don't think they go 3 and out on 3 consecutive possessions that Jalen Hurts is 100% or close to it. With that bum knee, it really limited a lot. I still don't know what happened on the fumble they credited to Did AJ Brown hit him when they were?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
AJ Brown ran into Swift on the play.
Yeah, that's why the Eagles don't use motion. But they're trying to get creative.
Same thing I said.
They run into each other. They run into each other.
Yeah, they're trying to get creative there, and I'm like, well, look, if they have Jalen, that's not a thing. And DeAndre Swift's more effective because of that. And I thought the running game was better last night with Tyler Steen in there, but it's still not what it should be. Rashad Penny only getting 2 snaps to me. I know they don't like him. I know they don't play him, but the guy had his yards per carry average on his first carry last night. Like, I guess the Eagles don't like 6-yard runs. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, DeAndre Swift did not have a good game running the football.
No.
I don't know what he ended up, like 2 yards a carry.
I'll be honest, he hasn't been good.
Change.
He hasn't been good since like week 4.
3, not good.
Yeah, not good. And that last drive was like they tried to run it. I think he had 1 yard, 2 yard fumble or something like that. Yeah, I mean, he's not, and that's what I said. He's a good player. I'm not saying he isn't a good player. He's a good player, but he's not the kind of guy you just turn around and hand him the football in the traditional way. He's not going to be effective in that manner, and that's where Jalen Hurts comes into it. Now, maybe Rashad Penny is, for whatever reason. I mean, the coaching staff sees him every day. They don't think he's should be on the field.
And they never give you a legitimate reason, on or off the record, why he's not playing.
Well, that's Nick's way. Nick's never going to bury a player. But you say a lot when you take them off the field. And Mario Goodrich, for instance, they took him off the field. And we're going to see. I think one of the most interesting stories going into the bye week, because I think Tyler Steen played pretty well.
I did too.
Did they move forward with Tyler Steen as the right guard, even when Cam Jurgens is ready to go? I think that's one of the more interesting stories, because that's where they want to go. And if he's ready, that's who they want to be their long-term right guard. Why wouldn't you keep him there? From my perspective,
I thought they wanted him to win the job in camp, but Cam never gave it up. And as we've seen this year, guys are losing their jobs due to injury. So
yeah,
why not Tyler Steen?
Times. Yeah, Kenny Gainwell lost his job because he got hurt in week 1, and then DeAndre had a big game.
Let me go back to the running back position, because I was thoroughly intrigued with the way things played out yesterday. During the week, the coach was asked about Kenny Gainwell, and he got defensive. I'm sorry, that's just the way I saw it. Throwing Kenny Gainwell into a comparison with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Oh, if every time somebody made a mistake, we pulled them out, we wouldn't have a quarterback. Or Jalen Hurts. No, that was just a foolish thing to say. But he was going to bat for Kenny Gainwell, the fact that the Eagles continue to seem to have faith in him. Yesterday, Gainwell makes the big play early, the touchdown
He had the best run. Yeah,
the
best
leap
running
into
back.
the end
and then
zone,
he disappears. We don't even
and then
see
he
him
gets
anymore.
2 more carries the rest of the game. Well, which is it, Coach? Do you trust and love Kenny Gainwell, or do you fear Kenny Gainwell? On a day when Swift's not running it well, why didn't they go to Kenny Gainwell in the second half of that game, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, well, shocking. Nick often contradicts himself. Yeah, it's not the first time. I mean, you bring up the point, like as you said, the comparison to AJ and Jalen was goofy. Number one, but number two, saying, "Oh, he never sits people." He sits people all the time. He sat Mario Goodrich. I mean, what are you talking about?
The only thing the Eagles haven't done to Mario Goodrich yet is put his locker with the rest of the practice squad guys.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
still
they
got a
did
regular
for
locker.
a while, and they moved some of the portable lockers out. They actually did move them inside, and then they moved them back outside. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, he does it all the time. He contradicts himself. But when you speak extemporaneously, occasionally you're going to do that. I'm a little surprised because that was such a good run early. Great kick out block by the birthday boy himself, Jason Kelsey, on that play as well. But yeah, it was a good play. And they were not running the football effectively.
And by the
Somebody,
way, Swift fumbled not once, twice.
yeah,
Now he
yeah,
didn't lose the ball, but he fumbled twice. I thought,
yeah.
well, at some point,
Yeah,
Kenny Gainwell's got to get the shot here. He never did.
I remember
Yeah.
last year that's all people did was get on Miles Sanders for fumbling the football and use that same energy for the hometown boy. It's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that might be one of those where as they go into the bye week and the self-scout, they might start saying, maybe we got to go. Kenny's got to get it a little bit more again. Maybe Rashad Penny's got to get
I
it
was going
a
to say,
little
or
bit
maybe
more.
Jeff Kerr's boy, Rashad Penny, gets a shot. He did
won't.
get he did get a 6-yard run yesterday.
I had people laughing in the press box when he had 6 yards on his first carry. I'm like, oh, Rashad Penny just reached his career yards per carry average. They should bench him. They did.
Didn't quite go back to him. All right, so question for both of you guys, and this is pure speculation at its finest. If Goddard's going to miss 2 games, 3 games, 4, whatever Goddard's going to miss, it's going to be several games. We know that. Who's going to get the most? Is it just a given that it's Jack Stoll because of the experience, because of the trust factor? They don't have trust in Calcaterra. They surely don't have trust in Albert O. They got him out there yesterday only because Calcaterra wasn't capable of going. Is it Jack Stoll to the rescue? Do we have enough confidence in that, Eagle fans, to believe that, the receiving numbers are going to go down, but is Stoll's addition as a blocker going to be enough to justify him getting the snaps he's going to get?
I mean, John, it is Jack Stoll, right? I don't see Albert
Jalen loves
on.
Jack Stoll. That's part of it. Jalen Hurts loves Jack Stoll. Trust him. Yeah, I mean, we as I said, the Eagles went through it last year. We saw it. And it's going to be Jack, and they have to play a little bit differently because he's not obviously going to scare people as a receiver, but he does have good hands. He's going to catch it when you throw it to him. He's not going to do much with it. And then you would hope that one of the other two, Grant Calcaterra was a rookie last year. You would hope he and Albert O could give you a little bit more in the passing game and sort of piecemeal it like that. But Jack's going to get the most snaps. He's the most ready to play, and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And that's what you want when you sort of have to elevate a backup. But I do think they have to find, and I mentioned Julio Jones, Jeff, that might be a Julio Jones.
Yeah.
You go about it in a different way, but get that big body as a receiver, that third part of the passing game. I think they're more equipped this year than last year because they do have Julio and Albert. They didn't have really. It was like cross your fingers with Grant Calcaterra last year.
Yeah, I feel like Albert Okwuegbunam could play some sort of role here because he has played meaningful snaps before in the NFL with Denver. I mean, he's not going to be a focal point, but I agree with you, John. I think it is going to be a little more Julio. I think they run a lot more 11 than they normally do, so we'll probably see more Julio. I talked to Quez Watkins on Friday. He said he's close. Yep.
Yeah, he's been out there working. I know people are going to get excited by that, but Quez looks close.
He almost was lost for the season, by the
way. Jody's good.
That's your boy, Jody.
The fear of Quez Watkins.
Yeah.
Well, you said every once in a while, speaking extemporaneously, the coach will say something that turns out to be questionable. There's nothing more questionable than the fear of Quez Watkins. The fear he puts in oppositions that get A.J. Brown open and Devontae Smith. Oh, come on, just move on from it.
Hey, they need his speed, Jody Mack. Nick tells you himself.
Gotta stretch the field. Got to stretch the field.
It's a joke. It's a joke. It just, I'm sorry.
Spacing is real. Spacing is real in the NFL.
I mean, ask the Cowboys. It worked pretty well for them last night until they couldn't space anymore.
Same in the NBA. So you got to space. You got to space the floor. You got to space the field in the NFL.
By the way, I am on my Nick Nurse high.
Oh no, I do believe that.
Oh, I believe that.
I think it's
Look
very
at Nick
important.
Nurse. Look at
well,
Nick
then
Nurse,
why
my
don't
boy.
teams in the National Football League have sprinters? Why doesn't Devin Allen play? He's
Everybody's
faster than
got
Quez
sprinters.
Watkins.
Everybody's got speed guys.
Nobody could space the field more than Devin Allen. If you're talking about pure speed going down the middle, stop.
Well, that's. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have to be able to, and I'm not saying Devin's, a developmental project, a strange one, admittedly, because he's a little bit older. He's not a great route runner. You got to be able to do other things. But Jeff, I mean, receivers in the NFL
Quez does.
Receivers in the NFL are insanely fast. I mean, the slowest receivers are insanely fast for the average person. Stretching the field for every NFL team is a big, big deal. When you have corners who can just squat on routes because they're not concerned that guys can run by them.
The Cowboys do it with Cavante Turpin. He's not exactly the greatest receiver in the world, but when the Eagles paid attention when he was on the field.
I mean, when you make it easy for NFL corners, man, they are smothering. When they're not scared, when people can run by them, that makes it really difficult for a quarterback. So I'm not saying Quez is a good player. I'm not saying he's doing it well, but I'm saying it's a very real thing in the NFL. Very real.
But you have to, if you're a defensive player, you have to be able to react to a guy going down the field. Unless you have no faith that he will catch the football if they throw it to him, and then it's irrelevant. Doesn't matter how quickly.
Well, you can't. The last thing you can do, and remember, we're two defensive coordinators in with Nick Sirianni. Explosive plays. You can't just say, that's where you and I depart dramatically, Jody. You can't just say, oh, so-and-so is not going to catch the ball, so I can let him run by me. Because you're going to lose your job quickly if you approach it that way.
And by the way, Jody, I'm not afraid of Quez catching the football. I'm afraid of what he does after he catches the football.
That too.
Fumble it?
Fumble it, not get a first down, whatever floats your boat.
Both of those two things. All right, Jeff Kerr, before we let you run, Mr. NFC East, any chance the Giants put a call into you this week to see if you want to go up and throw the football around for them?
Well,
no. They got some guy. They got the guy from Goodfellas, Tommy DeVito. They don't need me. He might be better than Daniel Jones at this point. What a joke of
Daniel Jones is Otto Graham compared to Tommy DeVito. I mean, and I'm not. Boy, the New York Giants are the worst team in football. The worst team in football. The worst team in football.
You know what? I am going to pat myself right now. I said the Giants are going to be god-awful this year, and the Patriots are going to be god-awful. I'm tooting my horn. I know a bad football team when I see them.
And here's what I'd like to know about the Giants, and they only know behind closed doors decisions that were made and the like. Who was the one who went to slam their hand? We have to re-sign Daniel Jones. Somebody had to make that call. Somebody made that call for the Giants this offseason. And if it's Joe Shane, who they just hired and had a good year last year, and he could be questioned during this offseason as to whether he should retain his job.
I don't get the Giants' philosophy. Did they like losing 38-7 in the divisional round last year?
That was the worst thing that ever happened to him was winning that playoff game. The worst thing,
because Kirk Cousins threw short of the sticks.
well, no, Kirk Cousins
Not
kept
even that.
Kirk Cousins kept the Vikings in that game. The Vikings defense was so bad. Daniel Jones went up and down the field against Ed Donatell's defense. By the way, for predictions, I said to Jody before the season, the Vikings have no talent on defense outside Daniil Hunter. But I said they'd be top half of the league with Brian Flores. They're top half of the league with Brian Flores. They came into this week 13.
I actually said
I was shocked.
I actually said that was one of the best hires of the offseason.
Yeah,
Brian Flores.
The guy does a tremendous job. Ed Donatel was the exact opposite. It was one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. He went up and down the field. The only reason they were in that game for Kirk Cousins to screw it up was because of Kirk Cousins, who had a phenomenal game. But them winning that football game convinced them that they were close. And it's like they forgot the next week when the Eagles pretty much just laughed at them en route to what was the score of that game?
38-7.
38-7. That was the worst thing that ever happened to the New York Giants. And they made a bunch of decisions off that bullshit win and set themselves back.
I actually think Washington is running a better organization right now. They blew it up. They just said, you know what? We're not winning with Montez Sweat. We're not winning with Chase Young. Here, the Bears, you want to give us a second-round pick for Montez Sweat? Have at it. We'll take it.
I think it's too early.
Give the Bears credit because Johnny always likes to take the Bears apart because, they made a couple questionable decisions. They got Sweat and they got him signed. That's commitment. Adding a good player and getting him locked
new
up
for them. Adding a good player is new for them.
Yeah, adding a good player, signing him, and getting a pass rusher.
Let's give a tip of the hat to the Bears. They don't always get it right, so when they very infrequently do, you got to give them credit for it.
Well, the reason I criticize the Bears so much is because nothing they do makes sense. That's all. It's like
trading for and signing Montez Sweat. Did that make sense to you, John?
No, not from their perspective. For the reason they're complete rebuild. So now they're sort of They're sort of trying to serve two masters.
Only has 1 year left.
They're trying to serve two masters.
My defense of the Bears was they have all this cap room in the offseason. And if you feel
got to spend it on something.
Yeah. And I feel like if you feel Montez Sweat is better than the 35th overall pick in the draft, at least that's
which I agree with. All right. I'll credit that. I agree with that.
Well, you're Washington. If you're who's their GM? I'm forgetting that. Jason Wright.
Ryan Poles.
Yeah. No, Washington's GM. Yeah, Washington. Jason Wright. Or you're running to the phone. Yeah, you're running to the phone. You're saying, "Oh, look, you want to give us that for him for a player of expiring contract?"
Here's the thing about Washington. Ron, essentially, he's the president, and Ron Rivera's essentially the GM with Herney. So they're running, and they're obviously gone. So I don't even know who's going to be running Washington. We're going to have to see what Josh Harris does. And I think Josh Harris will be better. Well, I don't think. He's definitely going to be better.
Anybody is better than Daniel Snyder.
Yeah, right. So they're going to be better. I don't know how good, but they're going to be better. The Giants, I'm a little disappointed with because I thought Brian Daboll was a great hire. I think he's a good coach. I still think he's a good coach. I think Joe Shane made some good decisions in his first year, and then they just weren't honest with themselves. And I always say that's the most difficult thing to do for an NFL executive. You got to be honest with yourself. And they should have realized that that was a nice win on the road in the playoffs, but they made too much of it.
And by the way, their offensive line still sucks. In fact, it's even worse than it was last year, and it wasn't any good.
But it all starts with the quarterback, and that's the biggest mistake they made was giving Danny Dimes $40 million. I'm sorry. If that's the price of doing business in the NFL, Danny Dimes is – I get it. Everything's going up, and it never comes back down. In no world is Danny Dimes a $40
I'll give you one, Jody. With your Jets. I'd rather – and keep in mind this guy has been the worst quarterback in the league the last 2 years statistically. I think I'd rather have Zach Wilson than Daniel Jones right now.
Yeah, at least you're not paying Zach.
Yeah, exactly. You're not paying Zach Wilson. You can just get rid of him.
That's a key difference. All right, Jeff Kerr, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks for jumping in. We will talk to you next Monday, even on the bye. Thanks for doing it today.
Yep, sounds great. Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me on,
Jeff.
guys.
Jeff Kerr, read him on CBSSports.com each and every single day. All right, McMullen, McDonald coming back. Hour number 2 coming your way. Chris Franklin, NJ.com, going to join us in less than 20 minutes. So stay here with Birds 365.